Hello everyone and welcome to our newest Maven Time. We have with us in the studio today one of our newest Mavens, Hayley Cavill-Jaspers. Hayley, hello! Thank you for joining us. When we talk about birds of a feather flock together, there is no truer, I think, statement for us than this. It's wonderful to have you with us today. So we're going to find out a little bit about Hayley. I know you're a familiar face to many, particularly in Australia, but for those who don't know Hayley Cavill-Jaspers and why she would be a maven of the fundraising nest, please tell us a little bit about you and what you do.
Thank you for having me, Michelle. I run two businesses. One is called Cavill & Co, which has been going for 29 years this year. And we work with companies and brands and we find them the perfect cause partner. So charity, non-profit, social enterprise. And we've worked with some amazing companies like Disney, Vodafone, Seek, Mondelez. And so that's one side of the business. And then in 2019, I met this amazing young woman who was a communications whiz, and she helped me develop some of the training that I'd been running in a physical format for nonprofits into a new business called bepartnerready.com. So that's an online learning and implementation program. So I work on both sides.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we both share a genuine love of not only educating, but the passion that we have for how important knowledge is. You know, when I've interviewed all of our mavens, and one of the reasons we have these mavens aligned with us is that they are the knowledge keepers. They are the experts in the space that they are highlighting. And you're our corporate partners, Maven. And there is nothing more true than how you become truly great is by simply knowing more. And I say all the time, I quote it from Ken Burnett, but it's so simple and true. You know more. Hayley, your program, it's not another training program. And that's what I love about it. It is an implementation program, isn't it?
Yep. So, you learn about corporate partnerships, you learn about the landscape, you learn about the things you need to prepare before you actually approach a company. But as you work through the program, you implement it into your organization. So it's more than just a training program. Some people have even called it a change management program because, you know, you're effectively selling your organization and you need to be sure that your organization is ready to be sold to partner with a company. So it does impact the whole organization. It's not one person sitting in their corner office doing a training program.
It does, absolutely. So moving away from that, let's go back a little bit and look at Hayley as a human and Hayley as someone who inspires and has been inspired, I'm sure. And the philosophy of the Fundraising Nest was born out of people inspiring people, people connecting with people, people teaching people. I've learned the biggest learnings from my peers, my connections, and having a community, finding your people that can help you be better is super important. So looking back on your journey of your life as a human and as a professional woman, can you highlight anyone that's inspired you and shaped who you are today?
What a great question. So as a human, probably my father. He was a builder and he climbed on building sites until pretty much the day he passed in his early 60s. And he was an East Ender and he taught me to just be straight and honest. So that's my style of coaching. Not for everybody, but that's my style. And some of his sayings, he had sayings like "Don't ask, don't get," that I've taken with me throughout my life and certainly within my business. And I don't think I would be running my own business if it hadn't been for my dad, who used to say to me, "Darl, you can do anything. You can do anything you put your mind to." And the other thing is he had a very strong work ethic. And I left home at 15 and a half and went off to work in London. So, and he supported that because he believed that you have to make your own way in life. So he embedded a lot of the values that I have today. But there was also, and I've had so many amazing leaders and bosses in my life. I can't particularly pick out one, but I've taken something from everyone. But probably the one person that's changed my life completely is a beautiful nun at Mother Teresa's mission. So after working in the corporate sector for 12 years and finding myself with money in the bank, a nice apartment in London, but not feeling content and happy, I decided to go traveling, and I went through Africa, India and Nepal. And at the end of that 18 months, I landed at Mother Teresa's mission and I met some beautiful nuns, but there was one in particular. And what struck me was how serene and happy she seemed to be, but not this crazy kind of dance on the table kind of happy, but this peace. And she had nothing. She literally scrubbed floors, sat with dying people, prayed a lot, and but she was so happy compared to the people I'd seen in London who had so much. And it really changed my view on life. And then when I went back to London, I couldn't go back to the PR and marketing world that I'd come from, and that's when I flipped on to the nonprofit side. So I actually don't know her name. I can see her right now, but the nameless nun, I would say, probably influenced my life in a huge way.
That is such a beautiful story. And I do have to ask the question, and it is so, when you mentioned the East End, of London, did you eat jelly deals?
Oh, absolutely.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. My dad used to take me down to Petticoat Lane Market every Saturday morning. It was my favourite time of the week because I got to spend one-on-one time with my dad, and we'd eat jelly deals, and then we'd have this pea mash with this sweet sauce on it. Do you know what that was?
The liquor, the pie mash.
Yeah. And strange things.
Very strange. I lived in Southend, which is Essex, but it's got those Southend definitely has a feel of the East End of London in it, and
definitely
not for me. Okay, Hayley, looking at as someone who has been in the corporate partnership space a long time, both working with corporates and working with charities to get the partnerships. And you'll probably have seen many changes over the last couple of decades, probably none more so than the shift in COVID and things. But what do you believe are the kind of top priorities for people working in our sector today to think about in the corporate partnership space?
Well, the space has become much more complex. So when I first started in 1995, there was no such thing as corporate social responsibility. Companies weren't required to measure what they were doing in that area. There was no sustainability, shared value, all these things that are around now. So there's much more opportunity now because companies are realizing this isn't just a warm, fuzzy thing to do to make the CEO feel good. But with that complexity comes, nonprofits really need to understand the corporate landscape. And I have this thing, which I talk about a lot, called the 4 purses, which helps people to understand that there are 4 distinct places within a corporate or a brand where they can access not just money, but resources. So there's the HR purse, the CSR purse, or ESG as it's called now, terms come and go, whatever's trendy. And then there's the marketing purse, which is the huge purse and often untapped. And then there's the philanthropic purse. Nonprofits obviously know how to apply for grants, but they are less aware and skilled in targeting the CSR and marketing purses, which are the 2 biggest purses. So it's just so important that people become aware and educate themselves, because they're often advised by board members to implement a corporate partnership strategy, but those board members are, unfortunately, they may have worked in business 20 years ago and the landscape's completely different. Or in many cases, they've never worked in the corporate sector and they think that partnering with corporates is just a case of making an ask, and it's not. It's completely different. Yes. So the training and the opportunities that you're offering through the Nest it couldn't have come at a better time.
Awesome. I've just thought of something there actually, and I think as charities we might default to this sometimes, that we have a lot of integrity and trust, and I assume that when I'm just looking at my experience as a fundraiser. I didn't really consider I didn't know about those different purses. And so you assume that when you go to a corporate, that they will explain that they are obligated to explain to you what their portfolio or their purses look like, when actually they don't. It's our job as fundraisers to understand what they have. And I think that's where we might miss a trick. It's our job to find out about them, not them to tell us what they've got.
Well, the thing is, though, Michelle, is they very rarely get to that opportunity, because if you're not talking to the right purse holder in their language, they're not even going to meet with you. The only person that might meet with you is the foundation, the head of foundation, because that's their job. Their job is to meet with nonprofits and identify opportunities to fund. But the head of marketing, if they get a random email from a charity that isn't speaking their language and talking about how a partnership with a nonprofit can differentiate their brand and help them reach a new audience, etc., they're just going to delete the email or not even get back to you. So it's a missed opportunity. So yes, you're absolutely right.
Know your stuff, absolutely. Hayley, what do you love the most about what you do?
What do I love? Probably the variety. First of all, working on both sides. I get to be Robin Hood when I'm working with companies, and my best thing is when I go through the process with a corporate and then we finally choose the partner. And I love that phone call when I ring them up and say, hey, Disney has chosen you to invest $1 million over the next few years. So that's a fantastic thing. But also, working on the nonprofit side as well, I get to meet incredible people, in both sectors, but nonprofit people, they're just special, aren't they? And learning about so much. 1 minute I'm working with the Climate Council and learning all about climate change, which is scary. And then working with Lifeline and the Heart Foundation and learning about all those things. So I just love learning. So it's a perfect job for me, because I do get bored but sometimes people say to me, Hayley, how have you run a business for 29 years? Aren't you bored? And I'm like, no, because no one day is the same. No client is the same. So that's probably the thing I love most.
Yeah, so it is. It's so varied, and just knowing that you've made an impact is, purpose. We all want purpose, don't we?
Absolutely.
Fundraising. So fundraising, corporate partnerships, there's all different facets of fundraising, and it's definitely its own kind of specialty area in fundraising. But I do want to go back to what does fundraising look like for you? And what was your earliest fundraising memory? When you think about fundraising, God, that's a world. What piques your kind of memory there of fundraising?
When I worked in the corporate sector, I worked in consultancy for some big agencies, and there was often a pro bono project that would come in, and I'd always put my hand up for it. So I think I had a particular appetite for doing that kind of work even then. And then after my big trip through Africa and whatever, and going back to London, I decided to join a nonprofit. So there's an amazing charity in London called the NSPCC, the National Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Children, and I joined that organisation. And even though I'd worked in the corporate sector and understood, I had no idea how to work in a nonprofit and sell a nonprofit to corporates. And there were some amazing people there that I reported to a guy called Giles Pegram, who is apparently a bit of a legend.
I follow him there.
Yes, I reported to him. And there were some incredible people there that took me by the hand and trained me up. And a lot of the things that I learned then, I incorporate into my training now. And for me,
is there a nice story about how you wanted to work for that organisation? Is that the one where you went to the cinema?
Say that again.
There was a story where you went to the cinema, you've told me before, and you saw.
Yes. So I came back from my trip, and I didn't want to go back to that world, and I was going for interviews and I was flunking them because I just didn't want to do that. And I went to the cinema, and I cannot remember the movie that was on. I don't think I even watched it, but this ad came up from the NSPCC, and it was all about all the different excuses that parents give for why their child has got cigarette burns on their back or whatever. It was really full on. And I remember just sitting there, first of all, being confronted with child abuse, with that concept of child abuse, but then thinking, hey, I wonder if they might want someone like me. So I literally rang them up the next day and I applied for the head of marketing, and I didn't get that job. But then they said, hey, there's a job going in the corporate partnerships area. Would you like that one? I said, yay. Had to halve my salary, of course. So I was a lot less, but I was happy. For the first time in many, many years, I was so happy there. It was my dream job, absolute dream job.
That story just kind of, it just ticks, the power in everything that we do. There is one common theme through every single part of fundraising, no matter what you're doing, is the storytelling. And you're right. Stories should be powerful in any way. They don't have to, they should be sad. They should be, they should strike the chord that they need to. And whether that is, by being honest or raw, when a powerful story hits, it lands not just, it calls you to act, and your act was to go and work for that organization. I mean, it's the call to action is incredible.
And it's why marketing is so important. I know some nonprofits say, oh, we're a nonprofit, we shouldn't be marketing. But you just never know who's going to see that particular piece of marketing. It could be someone who wants to donate to you. It could be someone who wants to work for you. It could be a corporate sitting in the audience. So it's really, really important to get your brand and the work that you do out there.
With powerful storytelling, absolutely. Before we go on to our fun segment, or this or that, Hayley, what advice would you give to your younger self that you know now and you didn't know then?
Just be yourself. Yeah. I've got a quote on my wall from Coco Chanel, and it says, you might as well be yourself because everyone else is taken. So in my 20s, I was very insecure, having come from a pretty traumatic home and childhood. And I was trying to be everyone else. I used to dress like other people. I used to try and behave like other people. And then, I don't know, I got to a point, probably when I came to Australia, I was so embraced by Australians when I first arrived, and they just liked me for me. You know what England's like, all the class structure and everything, your accent and your family and everything. And in Australia, people just go, hey, you're a pom, hey. Yeah. And, and I think probably it was the move to Australia that I just went, you know what, I am who I am, and I'm just going to be that. And if people don't like it, well, they don't have to be my friend.
Absolutely. We do have very similar backgrounds, and I know that's something we've bonded, we've shared, and we know each other in that sense. And you're right, for me, I used to look at people who were a little bit kind of out there, and a bit creative and artistic, and I remember looking at them and going, how are you allowed to be who you want to be without people laughing at you? And how do you get from how do you get from that to here? And I remember looking at the people that you stood out in our world, and people would, you have to look like everyone else. And so, I think that was my rebellious streak. My dad still shakes his head when he sees me to this day. Women should have long hair. And but it is. You're absolutely true. You can only be yourself. Before this or that, I do want to know, Hayley, where can we find you outside of work? What does Hayley like to do on the weekends?
Oh, I love cooking up a storm. I love cooking up, particularly this time of year, I cook up big casseroles and things. I've always got a beautiful homemade meal ready to go. I have a friend's dog that I walk quite regularly. I was out there this morning, the freezing cold, walking the dog. I love painting too, but I need to get back into that. So I paint canvases and weird stuff. But other than that, just opening a good bottle of wine, hanging out with friends. That's what I like to do.
And yes, if I had the absolute pleasure of going to be hosted by Hayley and Ty at their amazing Hobbit house, which literally has grass on the roof. It is a grand design, and it is beautiful down there in Warburton. So yes, I would just walk in and drink wine too if I lived in that house, Hayley. It's beautiful down there.
You're always welcome.
This or that, quick fire questions. Are you ready? Let's go. Mountains or beaches?
Mountains.
Introvert or extrovert?
Extrovert for sure.
Movies or book?
Movies.
Tea or coffee?
Tea.
Cats or dogs?
Ooh, hard to pick, but probably cats.
Morning bird or night owl?
Morning now.
Camping or hotels?
Hotels for sure.
Phone calls or text messages?
Phone calls.
Pizza or curry?
Neither are my favourite, but if I had to, probably curry.
Marmite or honey?
Honey.
Funny, and you can tell that you are a Brit because everyone else that I've interviewed has gone, is that Vegemite?
Yeah. It's different though. Marmite and Vegemite are not the same thing.
Yes, so I've heard. I wouldn't know because I can't stand the stuff. But I
Marmite's
forget
made with some kind of beef broth, whereas Vegemite's vegetarian, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. Hayley, it has been wonderful. This is not the last we've seen of you. We do have a partnership between Be Partner Ready and the Fundraising Nest, and it's one of my favourites. We really do our birds of a feather. We have the Nest Fest coming up in September, which you and Georgia are part of with Bully Zero, Janet at Bully Zero. We're excited about that. We also have, I know we're going to be in Tasmania together later this year, the FIA.
I know. I can't wait.
Oh yeah, that is Girls Gone Wild.
Girls Weekend, yay!
Watch out, Tazzy, we are coming.
We're coming.
And we have some exciting stuff going on in the Community Hub later in the year, which we are all working together for. So this is not the last you'll see of our Maven, Hailey Cavill-Jaspers. Thank you for joining me today, and thank you for everything you have done. You have been a great mentor to me, not only professionally, but personally over the last few months, because I'll tell you, being a founder and a business owner and a woman is bloody hard, and you've stuck by me, and women do need to be strong together in business because it is not easy. So thank you.
No one talks about how hard it is, do they? They always talk about the wins, but it is tough. So
it's very tough. So
thank you, Michelle.
That's where you champion each other, and I think that's the most important thing. So thank you. Until next time, it's been great. Thank you, Hayley.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.